Now, the latest, well, I'm saying he was the latest recruit, but he isn't necessarily the most recent recruit, but we'll talk about that, but the latest public recruit of New Zealand First for this coming election anyhow. He's been announced as the New Zealand First candidate for the Mana seat, which he can tell us all about in just a second, is the former Mayor of Wellington, Andy Foster. And he joins us now. Andy, welcome to the show.
Hey, great to talk with you, Mike.
First of all, I've been asking you for a long time because I wanted to talk to you about reflections on being the Wellington Mayor. We can have that conversation some other time.
Oh, that'd be good.
Because it's sort of over now, isn't it? I know what it's like not being mayor. You sort of, initially you don't want to talk about it, nobody does. Then 6 months down the track, a year down the track, you're prepared to be a bit more dispassionate, aren't you?
Oh, look, I think there's also the element of if you are talking too much too soon afterwards, then people will take, if there's anything that you say which is mildly critical of your successes, people say, well, that's just sour grapes. I think you've got to allow some distance, and then you can make some more dispassionate observations, and then people might see them as exactly that.
Can I say, I thought your victory over Mr. Lester, in 2019, that was pretty good. I mean, you were taking on a machine then, and you won. That was a pretty impressive personal victory for you.
Well, thank you, and it certainly it did feel that felt very good. It was very tight, to put it mildly, but I did get a feeling that it was possible, and we worked pretty smart to do that, and obviously the electorate said, yep, we'll do that. It's not easy in a town like Wellington to beat somebody who's on the left of the political spectrum.
Now, which raises the next question, because obviously the Greens now, through Tory Whānau, won that last election, and relatively convincingly, because there was such a swing to the centre-left. And I guess probably the really interesting thing, Andy, was, and I know you won't take it personally, but that only happened in Wellington. The rest of the country was going centre-right in its mayoralties and getting rid of a lot of left and Liberal and Green mayors. Wellington exactly the opposite. Why is Wellington so different to the rest of New Zealand?
Oh boy, there's a huge question, isn't there? Look, I think Wellington obviously is very dominated by public sector and people who work around the public sector. It certainly is quite a different outlook on life than the rest of the country does. It's very liberal. You've got very strong diversity in the community, and all of those things are. They're fabulous parts of what makes Wellington Wellington, but it is quite different to the rest of the country. And I think, particularly if you're policymakers in Wellington, you've got to remember that you're also thinking about other people who may come from a different perspective.
Okay. Now you are standing for the Mana Party. What I didn't realise until somebody pointed out...
The Mana Party.
Sorry, the Mana... No, not the Mana Party, the Mana Electorate. The Mana Electorate, is that Porua, that sort of area?
It stretches from Linden up to Paraparumu. So Porua Kapiti.
And Titahi Bay and all that area as well?
Yep, all of that too.
Waitangi, Is it Waitangi too?
That's in there too, yes, yep.
My God, that's a Labour area, isn't it?
A large chunk of it is. It's been a Labour seat most of the time, but then when you look at it, every seat in the country has been either a Labour or a National seat. Some of them have switched between the two. Some of them have been one or the other just about forever. The smaller parties don't tend to win electorate seats. I mean, obviously, the focus, as with most of the smaller party candidates, is all about the party vote.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough too. What I didn't realise is that you'd actually stood for New Zealand First before. I didn't realise that. Prior to being elected as the mayor, you were on the New Zealand First list 2 elections ago.
Yes, 2017.
Did you stand for a constituency seat then too?
Yes, I stood in Wellington Central, which is, I've got to say, probably the hardest seat for New Zealand First, for the reasons we just talked about. And also there's a powerhouse lineup there, because we had Grant Robertson, Nicola Willis, and James Shaw. So Wellington Central was very different this election than it was then.
Yes, I don't think there's any prominent person standing for Wellington Central this time.
No. It's completely different.
So a whole bunch of non-entities, basically.
No, you can never say anybody's a non-entity. What you say is they are just not as well known and are not as high profile.
Oh, there you are. You see, you've got that wonderful diplomacy still. Andy, just to explain to listeners too, Andy and I worked together in the National Research Unit, Opposition Research Unit, I think it was. Late 80s?
No.
Early 90s?
No, it was when you became... No, I actually ended up taking the job that you vacated when you became an MP in 1990.
Oh, is that right? So you took my job?
Yeah.
Oh, did you become a senior researcher after that? Or you were the...
Oh, I'm not sure we called ourselves senior researchers or junior researchers or whatever. We just called ourselves researchers. But, yeah.
Who was head of the research unit then? Was that David Lloyd?
No, it was Wayne Eagleson.
Oh, right, Wayne. That's right. And then he became Chief of Staff for John Key.
And for Jim Bolger.
That's right. He was too. And a very good one.
A very good man.
Yes.
I still keep in touch.
A very decent human being.
Yep.
It has to be said.
I've served with him on the board of Wellington Airport for a number of years as well.
Right. Okay. So why did you go New Zealand first in 2017? What motivated you to stand then?
Look, I think if I just encapsulate it between 2017 and 2020, I mean, I'm really a centrist mostly. I mean, there are some left and right are not particularly useful terms all the time, but I think most New Zealanders are moderately in the middle, or a range of a bit centre left, a bit centre right. Nobody talks about being a right winger or a left winger. They all want to be centre left or centre right, because I think most New Zealanders are there. And I think the value that a party like New Zealand First, if it does things properly, can play is that role of moderation and a bit of stability. Because what we can't afford as a country is to keep yo-yoing between policy positions particularly on those things which are long-lasting, whether it's infrastructure planning. I mean, we go from roads of national significance to light rail, none of which is the roads of national significance eventually get built. The light rail hasn't, and then probably we yo-yo back again. That's not a good way to plan infrastructure. It's not a good way for people to plan their lives in terms of tax and superannuation and all those sort of things. So people need some stability, and I think that's if you've got a decent centre party, and United Future played that role for a while as well. That I think has the potential to do something which is really good for New Zealand to help stable government in a constructive way. And
but you see New Zealand First, Andy, as a centre party. You don't see it being of the centre right or centre left, but a centre party.
I think it's played that role. I mean, obviously, it's worked with both National and Labour as United Future did. And I mean, you can't see ACT lining up with the Greens. The Greens have ruled out National. So you kind of that's the way we've kind of laid out our political landscape in New Zealand.
Mind you, this election, though, the difference between 2017 and this year is that Winston Peters has ruled out Labour, ACT and Te Pāti Māori as being coalition partners post this election, yeah?
I'm not sure I can recall what has been said about ACT. I mean, obviously, David Seymour and Winston...
Sorry, did I say ACT? I meant Labour...
ACT.
Oh, sorry, Labour, the Greens and Te Pāti Māori.
Yes, yeah. And that means you're really talking about, okay, what's the landscape look like in terms of the deal that might get done, assuming that it's a deal that needs to get done, what's the kind of deal that it might look like?
But this is the first time, isn't it? I mean, this is the first time that Winston Peters, since 1996, has actually said, I won't form a coalition with these dudes.
Yes, he's been very, very clear about that.
All right. Now, he's also been very clear, and sorry to raise this, but I just, because you live in Liberal Wellington. New Zealand First has made quite a big stand over the last 2 weeks on what they call toilet politics. I think it's a bit more involved than that, obviously, but it's been derided as such. This idea of transgender rights and its and how that is to be interpreted. As mayor, you were attended the protest for the Speak Up rally, as I understand. How do you reconcile those the policy of the National New Zealand First in 2023 with your previous stances on that issue?
Well, look, I mean, I think, and it's been part of a political party, you have a range of different policy issues, some of which you feel more attuned to than others. I mean, obviously for me, the big ones are going to be around the need to fix the economy, health system, education system, law and order, improve productivity. It's those kind of things which are the real focus. There are some niche policies, if you like, of which this one is one. And I think, for me, I've always been about inclusion. I enjoyed very much my relationship with the rainbow community in Wellington. As you said, we did it was sort of almost like it wasn't a counter protest, but it was more affirming our trans community when we lit up the Michael Fowler Centre when the Speak Up for Women campaign was actually inside. But we were saying, you've got the right to have your say, speak up for women. We're not going to try and do the kick you out sort of stuff. But we are going to say that we are also standing up for the rest of the community.